All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode, the post-draft recap episode of Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff and Matt. Matt has joined us, and we're going to take you through the entire draft. We're going to start off here with just some general thoughts about how we thought the draft went overall, maybe point out some teams that we thought did well, and then we're going to grade each selection too. I've got to mention that, Matt, in our pre-show talk, but we'll give each player and considering when they took them and all that to give an overall grade of each selection. So we'll do that as well. So with that said, Matt, any initial thoughts before we get diving into this thing?
In general, no, I just love the draft. You know, it's so funny because you think everything's over when the Super Bowl happens and there's no more playoff football to watch. And then it's like the draft always seems to arrive on our doorstep before I'm ready for it. And all of a sudden you're in April and you're like, holy cow, draft's next week. Holy cow, draft's tomorrow. Yep. So very cool. And then, free agency takes us in between the Super Bowl and to get to the draft. And now we're, 2 months away basically from training camp and all that stuff. So fantastic. We'll see what the Eagles bring on after the draft with free agents to continue to fill out any gaps that they feel like they still have. But overall, I actually did think that a lot of teams did well for themselves overall. Like there wasn't really like a team that when they drafted, I was like, what the hell are they doing? They're tossing their draft away. Like that was stupid. And I usually have at least one or two of those thoughts, but yeah. I watched all the rounds, minus a little bit of stepping away from the TV on Saturday, but I watched all of the first round, of course, and all of the Friday night rounds 2 and 3, tracking every Eagles move that they did. And just, I don't know, I watched all the picks in between. Like I might get up for water or snacks, but I'm back at it. And I'm like, there weren't anything that I thought was terrible. And then I thought there was a couple teams where I'm like, man, that was a good move. Man, that was a good pick here or there. Yeah. I'll toss it back to you if you want to talk about specific teams, good and bad, before I go further.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to spend a lot of time on talking about specific teams. I just thought in general, I agree with you. I think a lot of teams, unfortunately, in our division, I thought the Giants hit on a lot of their. I mean, at least you don't know if you hit on them really, but more than likely, Carter's going to be a stud for sure. Whether or not the quarterback they got there is going to be good, we'll find out. But I like their deeper picks. I was a fan of Scadaboo, and unfortunately now he's in our division. So, I mean, I was like, if we don't get him, I don't want the someone in a division to get him. So, yeah. But I thought Dallas did okay too. I mean, that guy that they got as a guard is already talking smack about Jalen Carter. Saying
Booker.
Saying he's going to shut him down and this and that. I'm like, well, listen, if he backs it up, more power to him. But I don't think it's that smart coming in as a rookie talking smack about Jalen Carter. But he's pretty. They needed to build their line. They have, what's his name? Just, Martin retired, who's all, heading to the Hall of Fame. And they lost, Smith, he didn't play for them last year, but they've lost Smith and Martin the last couple of years. So they do need to rebuild their line. So I thought it was a pretty good direction to go. I was surprised that Jerry didn't go for like a more splashy name, like a wide receiver or a running back. I thought they might have been in the Judy mix if they were going to, not Judy. What's the guy's name? Went to the Raiders.
Genty.
I thought they might, trade up or potentially try to trade up to get him. But Jerry kind of stuck to his guns and drafted, I thought, smartly in the first round. And then they got the BC guy that I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name again. But a guy that I was high on. We talked in the our pre-draft sort of analysis that he was one of the guys that we were looking at as a potential for the Eagles. So Dallas got him in the second round. So that's huge value there. So overall, I think it kind of fell into place. Obviously, the big story was Sanders' kid and how much he fell during the whole thing. And the Browns, who could have taken him 5 or 6 times, finally did take him in the 6th round. So they got fifth. Was it 5th round? 5th round.
That's the part I don't understand. If there's one move that I don't understand, it's why the Browns, after they already drafted a rookie at Shedeur Sanders. So. Right. Going back to the wisdom of John Madden of if you got 2 starting quarterbacks, you got none.
You don't have one.
What are you supposed to do? The closest thing to that I recall, but it wasn't so high, was when Mike Shanahan drafted both RG3 and Kirk Cousins in the same draft. RG3 being the
I remember that
3 pick, and then Kirk Cousins coming around and round 4, and RG3
Ended up being a smart thing though. The way
well, yeah, but that's only because RG3 got injured and was both in that playoff game.
Yeah.
But it's like, all right, I don't know what you're gonna have. It's just I don't know. We'll see how it works out with the Browns. It's not a Browns podcast, but I'm like that one.
Yeah, well, now they got to crowd it. And I get what you're saying.
Right.
Now they have what, 4 quarterbacks?
Four quarterbacks.
They traded for Pickett, and they have Deshaun Watson, of course, coming back from injury.
Yeah. Joe Flacco, Shedeur Sanders, Gabriel Dillon, the guy they drafted from Oregon, ahead of Shedeur Sanders. So who knows what's going on there. I do find it interesting though that you were high on Scatabo. I was high on Darius Alexander, defensive tackle, and both of those guys go to the Giants. So we're going to learn about whether or not we were right with our assessment when we're watching the Giants play the Eagles. And then it seemed like like you mentioned, the other player that was kind of on our radar went to the Cowboys. I thought the Commanders drafted well and smart again. That's 2 years in a row that they were taking smart picks, not reaching for players like we've seen them do in the past when they've had no clue what they were doing before last year. But clearly the NFC East is not going to take long to be back to its winning ways, besides just the Commanders and the Eagles. I think the Giants are primed to have a really, really good. I don't know, Daboll. I think
they'll be better anyway because they're going to get better quarterback play with Wilson. So they're automatically going to get a boost because they have a decent quarterback to start the year, and then the Giants, depending on how they're doing, maybe 8 weeks into the season, if they're struggling mightily, which they could, even though they're going to be better, they got a tough schedule, so they could still be 2-6 or whatever. And then they might turn over and try and see what they got in Jackson Dart. We'll see.
Yeah, and if with Russell, they might easily be a 9-win team. Because if we're right in the way that we were assessing Daniel Jones all these years, we're looking at him saying, this guy's awful. Like, how can you even have him on the field? And the Giants fans are all thinking the same thing. So now you don't have that awfulness, right? Our worst player that we complained about the most the last few seasons has been Jalen Reagor. And he impacted the game on 5 or 6 plays? Daniel Jones is their Jalen Reagor, and he impacted the Giants on every play on offense. So it's like you go positive just by removing him as your quarterback. So the Giants could be a big bounce back team this year just because they don't have to deal with Daniel Jones at quarterback.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see the Giants winning. I don't know what they had, 2 or 3 wins last year. I could see him getting up to 7-8 wins easy. I mean, that's very possible. Again, tough schedule. If they had a normal NFL schedule, I could easily see them maybe being a 500 team next year, or maybe even a 9-win team, like you said. It might be still tough for them, even though they've improved to get there because of how difficult the schedule is. But I tell you what, that defensive line is legit.
Yeah,
that's going to be a nasty D line.
Yeah,
in New York, and
so they could they could run the ball last year too with the rookie Tracy. What was his name? Tracy.
Right. And now they got Scatabo too. They could get the short yards guy.
Yeah.
So
I think they're going to surprise.
We'll see. Wouldn't surprise. Well, I don't think it'll surprise me and you the way we're talking about them, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, defense is going to be, like I said, that line can probably be as good as any line in the entire NFL. And that's not even a reach if you ask me. I really think they have that potential there because I think Carter's going to be the real deal, and they already have a decent line already. Yeah. One of the best tackles in the league, Thibodeau and
Brian Burns.
Burns, right? Yeah. So they already have a really good line. Alexander, the guy that they just drafted as another defensive tackle, going to be playing alongside, inside that line now. So yeah, they have. They could definitely be doing it. Now, thankfully, the Eagles have a great offensive line, so it probably won't impact the Eagles as much as some other teams. But so we'll dive now into the Eagles draft, and we'll let you know our thoughts. Now, I decided to jump on Thursday night and do a live stream. So thank you all for those who joined us for that. I was only on from like maybe 10:30 or so to the Eagles pick. And Matt ended up joining us as well. I had another buddy of mine, a Texas fan, on there. So we were kind of going through the draft together. So our at least initial thoughts on the Eagles' first pick. We're going to give you a little bit more of a deeper dive on them. And obviously we're talking about the Eagles' first-round pick, Jihad Campbell out of Alabama, who was a guy that a lot of teams had, or a lot of draft nicks or whatever gurus had as a top 10, top 12 player that the Eagles got down at the 31st selection. They ended up making a trade with the Chiefs just to make sure that no one else leapfrogged the Eagles to get him. So they wanted to make sure, Howie just said during his press conference that he wanted to make ensure that he'd get the guy that they wanted. Howie said that they had him as a top 10. So Howie was one of the GMs that had him pegged as a top 10 player, the Eagles, brass and scouting staff and all that. So the Eagles come out of this draft with the 31st pick, getting a top 10 player in their view and some others' view. So your thoughts again, man, on Jihad. I think it's Jihad, right? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Jihad Campbell.
Campbell.
So, first of all, is they, like you said, the Eagles thought he was a top 10 player. They were trying, and I guess the team that was closest to making a deal with him was the Chargers for them to trade up way ahead of the Chiefs and grab him. But then the Chargers just didn't pull the trigger on that deal. So they waited, and then were able to toss the 5th towards Kansas City. So he is, if he were just going to play linebacker, he passes the eyeball test number 1. He's a big dude. For years, going back to Mark Semino and the only Matthews product who couldn't play in the NFL. You got Clay Matthews Sr., you got Matthews Jr., and you have Casey Matthews, who ends up on the Eagles as a linebacker who couldn't do squat. Drafted by Chip Kelly because he was an Oregon Duck, right? And we're like, why can we not get some linebackers? All that started to change with TJ Edwards a couple years back, and now they've find this diamond in the rough in Zach Bond, and clearly Vic Fangio has much more influence on the GM staff right now about how important he thinks the linebacker is. So Jihad Campbell checks all the boxes for an athletic player. He's a big guy, big body. He's probably not done growing yet, but going to be interesting to see how the Eagles use him, because both Vic Fangio and Howie were on the record as saying, well, we're not sure we view him as quite like a traditional inside linebacker. They both talked about him as an edge rusher.
They're definitely talking him more about being an edge rusher than a linebacker. So they kind of even, I think Howie during his press conference even made mention of Micah Parsons and that type of guy. So that's, to me, seems to be how they're envisioning him. And he's got those type of attributes. I'm not going to sit there and tell you that he's going to be as good as Micah, but if he's near what Micah does for Dallas and his defense, then we got a player here. And it definitely seems, to your point, that he is that at least it seems like they're projecting him more to be an edge guy than a linebacker in this defense. And you pointed out how he was trying to move up to get him. That's how high the Eagles had a grade on him. They tried with the Chargers, and I thought they had a deal with the Chargers at the 22nd pick. I think it was right around the early 20s there. And the deal ended up falling through, and the Chargers made their pick. So this is a guy that the Eagles legitimately were trying to trade up in the draft all the way down until they finally made a little small move. So they got to feel like, that's why when you were mentioning Matt, because again, we had the live stream on, and Matt's like, Howie looks happy. And I've now since seen the footage, but yeah, he's like jumping on Lurie and giving him like a bear hug and, slapping high fives, everybody. And so, yeah, now we know why he was so ecstatic.
Yeah. And we'll see how things play out. But ultimately, I'm looking at, which player is this guy going to chew into his time? And I'm like, it might be Nakobe Dean. So if Vic Fangio's trying to look for a cover guy that can also bring the blitz package a little bit better than Nakobe did, it might be this. If I'm Nakobe Dean, I'm like, crap.
Yeah, and they're going to need him anyway, because Nakobe's probably going to miss most of the first half of the year at least.
Yeah, Nakobe's a great guy, great leader, but this one it would make me nervous if I was Nakobe Dean. I'm like, oh, crap.
Well, he might also, again, to our point here, we're talking about the edge rusher. He might just also end up being a rotational guy with Smith and Jalen Hunt.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see. I think Vic will probably have some unique plans for him. Maybe like a Von Miller type, That might be what they're looking like. So, because Von Miller is kind of on the light side of a D end, but a heavy side for a linebacker. And that's kind of where they might see Jihad Campbell going. So,
he's a big, thick guy, too. Like when they first drafted him and he came out, the first thing you look at him, you're like, damn, this dude.
He's big.
He's the size of like a Micah. I mean, he's definitely a big dude. And if he's got that same type of athletic traits that he could bring to this defense, it seems to be it's a pick that's definitely exciting, because I think he was on your radar screen, man. I think you had him on your potential top 10 list or whatever for the Eagles targets. Didn't you?
I had
Yeah.
linebacker as one of the top 3 needs that they would probably backfill.
Yeah. I just think that this could be a really a nice sneaky pick by the Eagles, because I don't know if all the other teams didn't really view him as like a Mika guy like the Eagles did. They were kind of like, oh, he's a linebacker, we can wait on him, that type of thing. And the Eagles were like, nah, man, we see this guy as like not being necessarily a linebacker, but like rushing him off the edge. He was able to do that at times in college. So we'll see. He's an Eagle fan, by the way. He's also kind of a local Jersey kid. So grew up an Eagles fan. So that's just cool in and of itself.
We've been singing Vic Fangio's praises, or at least I have, ever since they signed him as a coach. I wanted him as a head coach before they went with Sirianni, and they just pick him up as a DC later, which is the perfect combination. But Vic knows what he's looking for in these types of players. Like everywhere he's been, he has drafted these guys for very specific, particular roles in his defense, and they usually excel. So I can't wait to see what Vic's got in mind with this draft pick as we get into the season.
Yeah, and let's not forget diving in and picking from the SEC conference again. So we know we got a guy who's played against the best top talent in college. So, and look how much success we've had pulling the guys out of that conference between Georgia and Alabama. They've all been studs. So how he's like, why break any, don't fix, what am I trying? It's not broken, don't fix it. I'll be all right. Let's move on. We'll move on to pick number 2. My brain knew what I was about to say, but my mouth couldn't get it out. Let's go to pick number 2 here. Second round pick, Andrew Makuba. I know I got that one right. Safety out of Texas. What are your thoughts on him? I like the pick because it's a safety. They have some depth concerns there, but I don't know. There were some other guys on the board that I might have maybe gone with, but this guy's impressive. I mean, there's a lot to like about him as well. So what are your thoughts on Andrew Makuba?
So the top 2 safeties were off the board, right?
They were.
Mark's gone, and then the North Carolina or South Carolina Gamecocks product gone.
They were.
I think the Notre Dame safety was maybe still there.
Yeah, Watts.
He's the only other one that I would have thought would have been cool, but when the more, like, I didn't know who this guy was when they drafted him, so I've just been reading about it. And I'll give you the blurb from Athlon Sports in just a second, and everyone will fall in love with the first line. But the more you look at him in tape and everything else, and you see him pummel the Georgia quarterback on a QB like lead run up the middle, and I'm like, dude, this guy is 100% a CJ. And
he's not a big guy, but he lays the wood. So
not a big guy, but just like CJ GJ, this guy can move fast. He can intercept the ball, and when he brings it to make a tackle, he's bringing all of that 190 pounds with him and making a stick. I mean, he pulverized the Georgia Bulldog quarterback on that play. Like, I thought he was like dead, and I was like, oh, his head's off, and I'm like, oh, dumb. But
I did see that.
Major impact at the point of attack, and just seems to be very smart in playing zone defense. So another guy that fits Vic Fangio's system. If he's going to have blitzing linebackers and zone blitz type plays, then he needs people that can move and cover and get their assignments down quick and cover the field, right? So this guy fits in that mold pretty good. I'm a huge fan. I'll read you the blurb from Athlon before I pass this back to you.
Yep.
And he was rated number 5, by the way, by Athlon Sports.
Okay.
And very first line. This is the part I love. A rangy ball hawk with impressive playmaking instincts, Makuba is a takeaway waiting to happen when patrolling in zone coverage. Give it to me all day long. Perfect CJ GJ kind of clone. And maybe they knew that they were going to try to grab this guy in the first 3 rounds, which is why they let CJ go. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they had that much of a crystal ball, but definitely a good gap filler. Get him on a rookie contract. CJ, they would have had to pay to stay here, probably a significant amount of money. So, and they picked up that offensive lineman in that trade. So, good. Like, this is a win. Like, I love this pick even more, just because it fills that need that we lost with CJ, but we also got an offensive lineman that was highly ranked when he was drafted by the Texans. So we got a lot out of this pick, out of the value.
Yeah, true. Some of the things I'll add, I think one of the concerns was his size, and then one of the other things is like, did the Eagles take him too early? Because that was some of the other things that people were saying, like, he might have still been there in the third, potentially. Now, who knows? Here's the thing about this kid that might make him more of like, I can't really call him a sleeper as a second round pick, but maybe some things that the reason why he wasn't more highly regarded in the draft was he started his first 3 years at Clemson, but he was like in a different defense that he kind of, to his own credit, was like, I'm not being utilized the right way. And so he kind of asked out and ended up transferring. And that's when he exploded his senior year. He had 5 interceptions as a safety. That's a lot. And he just had his best year. So with that being said, you're like, if this guy did have like more than one good year in college, maybe he would have been, first round pick. Now, I know the Eagles took him in a second, but he was kind of sort of targeted to be in like a third or fourth round guy. What is his strength is, and what I like most about him is what you pointed out and what we kind of been talking about, is his coverage. He is an elite coverage safety. I'll even start throwing that word out there, because at least he was in college. We don't know if he'll be that good in the NFL, and that's why Vic, we know that that's one of the reasons why Sidney Brown didn't come in during the season. When CJ went out, they brought in what's his face?
Tristan McCollum.
McCollum, yeah. And that's because, first of all, we knew that, Sidney wasn't there for all of training camp, so he wasn't really up to far speed on the defense. But I think one of the other things that's really, I think, more of a preference for Vic is guys that he doesn't have to worry about in coverage. And so, and we know Sidney could be too overly aggressive, even in coverage, where he might overrun a play.
Overzealous.
Not even to hit the guy, just to get there too soon or jump too high or just try to take the guy, stuff like that. That I think Vic just likes the more safer safety, I think. At least that's the opinion I'm getting. So Sidney's going to have to fight for his job, which is good. You want competition. So if Sidney wants that starting job, he's going to have to fight this guy out for it, and that's all good. So if he does, awesome. We're rooting for Sidney. I know that, but let the best guy win. And I think Sidney knows this now. He's been here. Sidney is itching to start, and how competitive this guy is. So for me, I can see Sidney like, I ain't letting this rookie come take my spot. I'll do whatever Vic freaking wants. So let's see. Is he going to be able to beat this kid out? I don't know, but we'll see. I think either way, it's good competition, and may the best one win. I think I'm still as high on Sidney Brown as I've always been. But he's got to do a little bit better in the coverage and all that. So,
yeah. Well, to give you the weakness that F1 Sports has, it's only about his size. It's like it's a paragraph talking about his size versus the run, his size versus tight ends, and it doesn't say anything about his quick instincts. There's what I see, and I'm sure you've got, if everyone had low light tapes instead of highlight tapes, we would see where the mismatch in size would play itself out. But on all the highlights, you see how quickly he accelerates to the ball, and he's not stuck. He's not stuck mentally with waiting and hesitating and missing it. He's on it, a firecracker. And I'm like, man, when you can see that type of play, and again, it's SEC football, he's making quick, abrupt decisions, understands the game. He's a great person too. Born one of those folks that was his family's in Africa. First generation folks over here. So
Zimbabwe.
Every day that goes by, I love this pick more and more and more, and I can't wait to see this guy on the field. Even as much as I love Sidney Brown, I can't wait to see this guy play on the field.
Yeah, no, me too. I'm excited to see him. Sure.
The guy whose job's really in trouble immediately is Avonte Maddox.
Yes. Yeah. Because that's the other interesting thing is, where did I see this guy? He could probably play. He looks quick enough, and like you were talking about, his reading and his instinctual skills that he has. Maybe they just, he comes in, he could even provide depth for Cooper. DeJean. If Maddox is gone, they move on from Maddox, which is probably going to happen. Need someone to fill in for Cooper if he needs to take a play off or he gets hurt for a couple games. This guy, it seems, has the skill set to be able to come in and do that for the Eagles.
It's possible.
More so than Sidney, because Sidney is, at least what he's shown so far, not as good in coverage as potentially this guy could be.
Yeah.
And plus, Sidney's strength is like more of a box safety.
Yes.
Could defend against the run. He's got speed side to side and all that, those type of things. But I think Howie even mentioned it during that same press conference that the box safety that you always used to hear about is kind of being, it's morphing into more of a coverage type situation, especially in Vic's defense. So that's the thing about Sidney Brown. Even if he does improve, he might still not be as the ideal fit for Vic's defense. And then you got to wonder what the Eagles would potentially do with Sidney, because Sidney eventually is going to be like, what the heck, guys? I want to play. Because they invested in the third round pick in Sidney. So it's not like, they don't have a lot invested in him. So
no, I think Sidney, I think, might be the main backup for Blankenship. And then you've got CJ, GJ being there as that rangy safety, competing with Sidney Brown for the other spot. But really, the clonism between him and CJ is 100% there. They're like literally the exact same type of player.
Yeah, you just wonder how much more meat he could put on his bones, because he seems to be like thin framed too. And it's like guys like Deshaun Jackson and our own Slim Reaper, they're just never guys that are going to be put a lot of weight because they just don't have the frame. Yeah. So you wonder if this guy's built that way too, because for safety, you have to have some bulk on you. But we'll see. I mean, he wasn't like injury prone in college.
No,
but these are bigger guys, faster guys in the NFL, and we'll see if his body will be able to hold up. But either way, like you were saying, I think that might end up being what Sidney ends up being, is more of a backup, not to this guy if he ends up starting, but maybe the backup for Reed Blankenship, because Reed's more of the guy that's not necessarily coverage guy. He's more of the guy that's always in run support and all that. So
getting the tight end.
That makes sense.
Plus, there ain't nobody on this team that's a better gunner right now than Sidney Brown on special teams. So
he's great there. But again, Sidney's not going to want to just be a special team
player. I know that, but nobody else can do that better right now.
He is. Yeah, he's always the first one down there. And it's good, because there's no doubt in my mind that anyone back there fielding a punt knows that Sidney's coming.
Coming full speed.
And Sidney's a guy that he's like a cannonball. So it's like, it's got to be playing in whoever's head, is trying to field a punt.
Yep.
Because they see it on tape. They know Sidney's down there. And if there's no fair catch, man, he's going to try to take your head off and start a brawl in the gateway.
Love him. Yeah. Don't forget at the cornerbacks too. If DeJean goes out, we still have Keely Ringo, and so we're our defensive backfield is deeply stocked. That's probably the best strength position that we have right now.
A lot of youth back there for sure.
Yep.
All right, let's move on now to the next selection. They did not have a third round pick. Well, I think they did. They might have traded out. They traded out, right?
They traded out, and surprisingly, I thought this was where they might get that defensive tackle, but they weren't there. The guy I had pegged, two of the three went in the second round, but that third guy, Darius Alexander, was still there, and then the Giants plucked him in the third round. So they trade back, and then they grab this guy, Ty Robinson. Yeah. And then they
had no idea who he was prior to this pick, but everything that I've been watching, because I've done a lot of tape on this guy ever since, I love this pick. I think this guy, at the very minimum, will be just a solid guy you could plug in.
Yeah.
But I think this guy has the potential to, and the Eagles scouting staff deserves a lot for finding this guy, because I didn't see much tape on him. And when he was picked, a lot of the guys on television and sensitive and, giving Eagles grades, they love this pick too. So I don't know how he's, I don't know if I want to say he slipped. This is probably when they figured he'd go. But this was, again, keep in mind, a very deep defensive tackle draft. This guy in another year might have been a third or second round pick. Who knows?
Yeah.
And I love what I see from this guy. He's got a mean streak, which I love for defensive tackle. He likes to mix it up. He's got a quick first step. He's strong.
Yeah.
And he's big. So he can, it looks to me, I mean, we'll see. All this is just pre-hype for the season, but he looks like he's be decent against the run and provide some pass rush. So
yeah, they might play him out on the end position as well.
Maybe
he's slightly undersized for DT is what I've been reading in most of my stuff, but the guy is
I say that, but he looks big.
Oh,
Like I'm like they always say. I mean, I've heard some criticisms like he's a little undersized, but I'm like, you look at this guy, he looks like a freaking mammoth.
he's
Like
muscular.
he's just stocky as hell.
Yeah,
He's jacked.
he's a muscular dude, probably a little bit less fluent in his movement. Like Jalen Carter doesn't look like he's a stack of muscles coming at you.
But
But
he's
when you
strong as
hit
hell.
people, you realize how much strength is in that body and how
Right.
quick they move. And
Yeah.
those are the difference between a top tier tackle and a guy like Ty Robinson that looks like Adonis, but doesn't have any of that quick twitch muscle stuff that Carter's got going on. And probably
Not many players do either.
doesn't have that dominant first step, but is pretty
Right.
quick. He definitely
Yeah.
passed the eye test, and that's why I think he's another piece that I'm like, yeah, he'll probably rotate in at defensive tackle, but they might push him out on end on some plays. Like he reminds me of like somewhere
Well, that's
between.
what they did with Milton Williams. Remember, he played end every once in a while.
Yeah, yep. And he probably is like Milton Williams' replacement. He reminds me of like an Andy Harmon type.
Yeah, that's actually a good comparison.
Like a more muscular version of Andy Harmon. He just looks really chiseled.
Andy Harmon was still, in my opinion, one of the most underrated Eagles of all time. That guy was a good freaking player.
And the vet took him out, didn't it? Didn't he get injured on the vet?
I think so. I mean, he played a good 6 years or so, or 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I think.
But it was still like 5th or 6th all time with Eagles sacks or something.
Yeah,
maybe not that high, but he's up there.
So we'll see. The fact that they didn't reach for this guy and they traded back, was able to grab. I don't know what. Actually, I don't know much about what they got in return for trading back these.
I can tell. I do have that up here. So go ahead, just keep going, and I'll give that to.
I didn't know if they were picking up. I think they acquired at least one extra 5th round pick in one of the moves that they moved back, but I didn't know if they had anything setting up for next year, which would be sweet if they grabbed some ammunition for next year. But I have no issues with Ty Robinson going here. I would have preferred Darius Alexander or one of the other 2 defensive tackles that I was looking at. But and I don't even know if he's ranked. Yeah, here he is. He's number 16 according to Athlon. And I'll just read the first sentence for y'all.
Yeah.
Strong and versatile, Robinson has the size and skill set to play from a wide range of different alignments. And this is why I'm thinking he might be on the end for a couple plays, which will allow him to fit any scheme at the next level. His massive frame and impressive wingspan give Robinson the ability to dominate at the point of attack with tons of power, and his reach can keep blockers from getting into his pads.
Yeah, that's what comes off on tape, that part right there.
Yeah, that sounds pretty darn good.
Yeah,
I
agree. Well, just to get to answer your question, I might as well give because the Eagles obviously traded out of the 3rd round too, so I'll give you that also. So in the 3rd round, remember, they gave up a 5th just to move up one slot to grab Campbell. And then they traded out of the 3rd round, and they're going to get a 2026 5th round pick. And let me get this right here. Receive a 3rd round pick. I don't know what the heck happened. This doesn't even actually address where the 3rd round pick to, because they actually swapped 3rd round picks with the Falcons.
Yeah.
And the Falcons came up and grabbed Watts, but it doesn't say. It says they definitely got a 5th round 2026 pick from the Falcons.
Yeah, so that's
what did the Eagles do with their other 3rd round pick? It doesn't tell me. Anyway, getting to Robinson now, they got a 6th round pick in 2020 this year that they used.
Yep.
And they also got a 4th round pick. So they basically swapped picks.
Okay.
In the 4th.
And
so that's what they did there.
Which they used on the other edge rusher. Okay.
They ended up using that 6th round pick on Miles Hinton, who we'll talk about later in this year's draft. So yeah, nothing too crazy, but they got some guys. All right, let me give you a little of Lindy's. What's good about Lindy's, how they have like their separate column of these guys that are just best at certain traits.
Yep.
The guy that they named for best tackling was Ty Robinson. And it says a human tower who doesn't let go once he gets his hands on a runner. Robinson is oddly short armed for his size, but he's smart and precise. And they had him ranked 17th, so right around the same as yours.
Yeah,
late bloomer.
Short arm for his size, but his size is 6'6".
Yeah, he's tall.
Pounds.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's just a freaking
monster
tower.
He's a tall dude. Like,
Yeah.
that's tall.
It's just one of those guys where I put on a tape and again, you always have to watch the highlights tapes or whatever like that and I don't always watch for like the highlight play itself. I'm looking, especially for the line, I'm looking to see how these guys engage with the blocker, if it's a defensive lineman and vice versa, if it's offensive lineman they draft, and just kind of see what the quick twitches or the power, those type of things. Not even necessarily if the guy gets a sack or ends up with a tackle for loss. It's just looking at those attributes. And what I saw, I like a lot. So I think this is a really good, solid pick for the Eagles.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's move.
I like the draft so far. I like it.
And this is the guy probably out of all of them. Yeah, good draft so far. This is the one out of all the picks where I still need to do some more research on this guy.
Yeah,
honestly, he's the only one that I haven't really done a lot of work with. What I heard from from Eagle insiders that I've listened to since the draft is this guy is probably, and they're kind of saying the same thing. Like, he might be the most questionable pick of the draft for the Eagles. They thought there's some other corners there. This guy doesn't have too impressive of a college career from what I have seen, at least initially. Do you have any thoughts on Mac McWilliams? And again, in full disclosure, I need to do some more work on this guy. I don't know outside of the other. I know much more about the other guys than I do him. I haven't done a lot of work on him yet.
Right. So my main sources don't have him listed even as a sleeper.
So he's not even listed.
Nope. Yeah. So, and I looked him up for cornerbacks or safeties. I'm like, where the heck is this guy listed? And I cannot find him. So I don't know much about him.
So it's gonna be hard for you to look. Yeah, it might be the same way with Lindy. Well, you probably look through Lindy's too. So is he not listed in Lindy's?
He's not listed in Lindy's either, as far as I can tell.
All right. Well, that tells you why I haven't done much work on him either. It must have been what I dealt with during the draft too. I'm like, I don't know anything about this guy.
No, I wonder. I have no idea what size he is. It would be neat if they had like a 6'2", 6'3" Bobby Taylor type. That would be kind of unique to have as a DB.
Yeah.
I think, this was surprising because I'm like, man, we are really deep at the defensive back position right now with guys that have played decent when they're on the field. So Eagles must have seen something that they liked about him. And I'm curious to see his biometrics. Like, how tall is he? How big is he? Maybe I did say though, and they didn't go there on the offensive side of the ball. I did say that the Eagles would draft somebody to be a kick return specialist and punt return specialist. So maybe that's
that. Yeah.
So I'm not sure because both of the Lindy's and Athlon Sports took kick return specialists out of their measurements. So when you look at specialists all these years, punters, kickers, they used to have return specialists there. So maybe this guy can return the ball. Anybody out there has a comment on it? Leave us a trail.
Yeah.
Look him up. I'm hoping
anybody goes down to Central Florida or is from the Florida area that's got some meat on this guy. I mean, he's 5'10", 191.
So tiny,
short for a corner.
Yep.
Started 11 games for Central Florida last season. Graded out for the team's best defender according to Pro Football Focus. So as far as Central Florida's program, he was their best defender, but I don't know how much. Yeah, he was also the captain of the team. Oh, here you go, Matt. Prior to transferring to Central Florida, he served as the primary punt returner.
There you go.
See, this is what you get from this show.
There
Matt didn't know that. He speculated, nailed it.
Yep. There we go. I had a feeling they'd go there.
Here's his career stats: 42 career games, 36 starts, 133 tackles, 25 pass breakups, and 2 picks.
That's pretty good.
So he also had 6.5 tackles for a loss and a sack. So I guess he could blitz a little bit. But again, small guy, but you never know. He could be another. Who was the guy back in the 90s? Remember Mark McMillan?
Yeah.
Love Mark McMillan. The guy was always.
He was like 5
guys a foot and a half ahead, higher than him, but he had major ups and was a pretty decent cornerback for the Eagles.
Yeah.
Those would go way back. And a lot of people aren't even born when he played, but
he was like 5'8", 5'9", 100.
I don't remember how tall he was. I have to look it up, but I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I'm sure he's going to be a depth guy, probably practice squad. Maybe he's destined for the practice squad, but if he's got returnability, which does seem like he at least had it in college, you never know.
As long as Cooper ain't running back kicks, I'm happy.
Yeah, I agree. All right, next pick. This is one that I have watched some tape on. I don't know how much you've done some research, Matt, but it's pronounced Smile. I know that, so no need to struggle with it. Smile Mondon. And of course, we go back to the SEC, Georgia. Now, I don't know if you want to go first, Matt. I have some thoughts on this guy.
You go first on him. I think I took first on the other guys.
Okay. So I love his range. Side to side, he's like he's a sure tackler. What I liked about his play, and again, this is what I look for, a little intangible type stuff. He was the guy in the Georgia team that is like, I don't know if he's like the main signal caller, but in a lot of plays, he's the one going, like reading, like pointing, hey, this is what he's doing, that type of thing. He's the guy on that Georgia defense that was doing all that. So to me, that tells me he's a smart player. He's good at diagnosing plays, and he made a lot of like tackles for losses or plays out in the flat. He's like the guy making the tackle. He blitzed a lot too. Like I noticed that he did a lot of blitzing. So this could be a guy that in certain packages, Vic sends out just to be the blitzer, and he's good at getting through. At least in college he was. Again, played in the SEC, knows how to play against good talent. So I like this pick a lot. I don't know a lot about him, but what I saw, I'm good with this pick.
Well, I like his size. His size reminds me of Willie T.
6'3",
235. So he's a little bit of a thinner linebacker as of right now. He's also 22 years old. So young kid. He's definitely at the floor right now rather than the ceiling. Of course, all these guys are. But
I'll just chime in just real quick because we got to keep in mind that not everyone in our audience is as old as we are. So when Matt says Willie T, he's talking about William Thomas, who was one of our best linebackers we had back, again, mid-90s. Really, really good player. And I think that's a good comp. So I'm glad you brought him up.
Willie T, baby.
Willie T, William Thomas.
I look at, he's had a handful of sacks, 3 sacks for the last 2 seasons. Had 68 tackles, 57 tackles last 2 seasons. Quarterback hurries, had 2. He's not really a pressure guy, according to this magazine, but
I saw him blitz a lot in the tape I watched.
Yes. Well, and the final analysis for Athlon says NFL defenses love speed, athleticism, and versatility, which is why Mondon should have plenty of fans across the league.
Yeah. So
that's pretty cool. Could use a little extra bulk to improve his ability to defend the run 100% because he is a little light at 235.
Yes.
But at the same time, another rangy kind of tall guy. Like they got a lot of height on their defense. Defensive tackle,
linebacker, those balls down.
All big guys. So interested to see again what Vic has in mind for this guy. And if you're drafting linebackers from the University of Georgia, I'm okay with that.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, I liked how he was like the guy back there. Again, I don't know enough about the Georgia program or watch college football enough to know if he was like the defensive captain or the guy that's like the main signal caller or calling defensive plays. He may very well be because I saw a lot of that on tape, but at least he's the guy that was like at the line of scrimmage, like after the huddle, after the play call. He was the one that mostly was doing all the pointing and, adjusting the line and everything and doing that kind of stuff. So that just tells me he's a smart player. I don't know if I don't see him in Lindy at all, actually. Unless I missed him.
Lindy separates the linebackers, whereas Athlon keeps them all together. So he was easy to find over here.
Yeah, I'm looking at outside linebacker. I don't see him in here, but maybe he's an inside guy.
Athlon had him ranked as number 9.
Yeah. Either way, I did enough tape on him. I don't really need to read up on him necessarily. I just kind of gave my thoughts on what I saw, which was pretty impressive. So I think that was a pretty interesting pick, and I think I'm high on that selection. And again, I like the pedigree of the program that they plucked him out of too, being Georgia. All right, let's move on now to Matt. Do you remember Pete Kendall?
I do. I didn't recall that until I was going back through after the draft was finished and looking up all these guys. And I'm like, oh, Pete Kendall. That was an all-pro himself.
Yep.
So
good player. Now his son is an Eagle.
Yeah, a 5th-round backup center, which helps solidify that position. I think they were looking at this one. that playoff game where they were missing Dickerson and the center there. I think
They're
they're
both
like, you know what?
serious pain.
Yeah, won't hurt to have a backup center guard to
Yeah.
go back up our two beasts. So
Yeah.
I love this pick at the 5th round. Like, I don't know much from watching tape on him. All I needed to be sold on this was Pete Kendall's kid, and that was what the magazine write-up was about him. Was he's smart, big dude, but all of his smarts are in his head, instead of his butt. So.
Yeah, I did a little reading on him. I definitely remember his dad playing. I definitely remember the name when they mentioned that Pete Campbell was his father. And they say he's got great power in his upper and lower body. It's always good for a center. He's 6'4", so he's not a short center. That's kind of been the Eagles between Kelsey and Juergens. They've both been short centers. This guy's got some height. Great run blocker, good at finishing blocks, high motor player. That was exactly how his father was when I remember him. Clean injury history, no setbacks. So he's a guy that's been, tough player. Little underweight, they're saying, for the position. But I mean, how can you not like this guy? Got the family genes. He grades up pretty well. Lindy's had him as a 3rd-rated center overall. So you get the 3rd-rated center in the 5th round. I'll take that in all day, any day of the week. And I think that's pretty much. They also say, again, in the sort of the side, who's the best at what, they have Kendall as the best pulling and trapping center. What do the Eagles do? Like the man out of their center position? Exactly that. Yeah. So,
which means he could probably move to guard with relative ease as well. So, Stoutland University, who knows what they've got in store for this guy. But again, they're backfilling behind all these beasts, and they're drafting road graders to just continue that. This team is going to run the ball down teams' throats for the next several years until Barkley's contract is done.
Yeah.
This is where this fits, is like, another guy that's just going to, you can probably line him at guard or center, doesn't matter. And he's just going to maul in that running game.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if they end up giving, and they might, they gave Barkley more money. He's still in his prime, but he had 350 something touches last year, which is a lot for a running back.
Yep.
But I think, first of all, Barkley, he did it easily. It's not like he was slowed down at the end of the year. So, and the thing is, sometimes when you have a lot of injuries in your young career, you lose snaps, right? So you're out an injury, you're not getting beat up. And that happened to Saquon his first couple of years, 2 or 3 years with the Giants. He missed games and stuff like that. So that's why we said about Brandon Graham. That's why he probably played as long as he did, as well as he did. Brandon Graham, in his career, tore his knee, missed like a season and a half. Those are all wear and tear in your body. I mean, it's obviously tear on your body, but I'm just saying, obviously, your body's not taking a physical beating while you're not playing. So, something to be said about that, I think.
In the 5th round to grab him there.
Yeah.
All the other defenders that I was looking at, Jack Sawyer had gone at this point. I was also thinking offensive tackle, because Chase Lunt, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Was
picked. I was going to ask you about him. Where did he end up going? Do you know?
So he was right around this area. I forgot who exactly drafted Lunt, but they literally.
Was he drafted? Do you remember? They
took him 1 pick before the Eagles draft pick in which round. So if he went in the 5th round, that might have been the pick that went right before Drew Kendall. If it was the 4th round pick, it was the pick that went right before their 4th round pick. So it was either 4th or 5th, and Lunt, I think, was gone at that point.
So you had him targeted right around the same, right when he went, basically.
And the other sleeper tackle that I had went way early. The guy from Boston College, the offensive tackle.
Oh,
Ozzie.
There was an offensive tackle from Boston College.
Yeah, I'll give you his name here in a second. The Ozzie Trapillo.
Oh, yeah, you did mention. Now that you said Trapillo, I remember we talked about him.
Yeah, he went very early. Chase Lunt was somebody from UConn that I was hoping would fall. These guys are both 6'8", 310-pound beasts.
Yeah.
And Lunt, I remember, went 1 pick before the Eagles, and I think it was one of the picks.
I wonder if the Eagles had him targeted. You wonder now.
I wonder. I think they did move back after he went. I just can't remember what team or what round, because we tracked down that information.
Yeah. So they had Lindy's had the UConn guy ahead of Trapalo.
So did Athlon. And
Yeah.
yet Apollo goes in like the third round.
Yeah, interesting.
He was high.
Yeah. Yeah, I was interested. I was going to ask you if you knew where Lund went because I didn't know where he went.
Yeah, I remember whatever team picked him was one pick right before the Eagles.
I wonder if you'd love to know if he was the Eagles' next pick.
Yeah. They'll never tell.
Never know.
The guy they got was the guy they were focused on the whole time. That's the answer that every GM gives you.
Hey, like I said, you can't go wrong getting a guy in the 5th round with the NFL pedigree. His father was a Pro Bowler. So he's got it, he's wired to be able to play in the NFL. And BC's a pretty good program. Good stuff. Now we'll move on to.
You know what? Come to think of it, I saw UVA play Boston College this year, so I must have seen him play.
Yeah, he was in the game. Yeah, he started.
Yeah. So, the UVA did win that game, I think, late, but BC was killing them early. So, anyways.
All right. Now comes to a guy that I pointed out in our draft preview that I said on my wish list for this draft was for the Eagles to grab a quarterback. And I said, the guy I want is Kyle McCord.
Total homer pick. Everyone knows
your homer pick, man. And the Eagles went out and did it. And I love this pick. Yes, I'm a homer. Cuse is my team. I watched this guy play a lot during the season. I don't watch a lot of college football, but I do watch the Cuse whenever I can. And USC, those two teams, I usually have a good idea of the players because I do watch those and I follow them. So to get Kyle McCord, who I know this is a weak quarterback draft overall, he led the entire NCAA in passing, 30-something, 35 or 36 touchdowns. And like I said, I know this guy I can speak to because I watched him play. So I can come with much more credibility than just kind of like listening to other people and doing my own research and watching tape. I actually watched him play. Here are the good things, and I probably mentioned it in the pre-draft preview that I like about him. He is smart, he's accurate, and he can read defense as well. And he can pretty much throw any type of pass well. Doesn't have the greatest arm. He's not a super mobile guy, but he can escape pressure. He'll take a hit. He'll stick in there. And he does a lot of really good things well for a guy you're going to get this late. And he's really just probably going to be, I don't know if he'll ever be a starter, but he has attributes to potentially be a starter in this league. We'll see. I love this pick value-wise. The Eagles like to always get a quarterback every 2 or 3 years, always draft one to kind of keep the cycle going, cycle guys in, cycle guys out, and not wanting to spend a lot of money on good quality backups. They did that a couple years with Foles, and it certainly paid off. But now, because the Eagles are already tight with the budget, so that they just want to get good quality guys on the cheap and draft them every few years. So you have a good solid guy in there to bring in if Hurts goes down. We obviously know we have that in McKee. I don't think this guy's as good as McKee. I think McKee has already proven that he's McKee, first of all, has got a great arm and is accurate. So he's got a better arm than McCord does. But get this guy in the 6th round, awesome. And we'll see. I think for sure he's going to beat out what's the guy that they got out of from Cleveland. I think he'll beat him out, and I think McCord will be, the number 3 quarterback. And then if they end up moving on at some point with McKee, I think McCord could be a decent backup. I don't know if he'll be as good as McKee, but I think he'll be decent enough to be able to go in and lead a team and make some smart decisions and those type of things. But so anyway, I could rave about this guy for a while. I was happy they took.
Where did he play for Syracuse? Because he was a transfer, right?
Yeah, he was from Ohio State, so he played. He was the backup to Stroud, C.J. Stroud. Yeah. So backed up Stroud, and then he just wanted more playing time. Transferred to Syracuse, and that was his first year as he might have started 1 year at Ohio State. I think he did have 1 year starting. He played behind Stroud the first 2 years. Then he was a starter, had kind of an okay season, and then decided to transfer to Syracuse and had a monster year. And Syracuse had like 10 wins as a football program. Yeah. So he was a big part of that too. Syracuse had some big wins. They were the team that upset Miami, one of the top teams in the NFL. Who was the quarterback? McCord. So
as soon as the Eagles drafted McCord with their 6th round pick, I thought for sure a deal was going to be made between the Saints for Tanner McKee for a draft pick next year. maybe a third or fourth. And I wouldn't doubt it if Howie called and said, you can have him, Kellen Moore. You can have your guy that you know and trust for a third round pick. And he's probably like, I can't get my GM staff to go on that. I know what you're saying, Howie, and I know he's worth that third round pick. I just can't do it because I'm still the rookie head coach over here, and I'm not quite trusted yet to make my own decisions. But I thought for sure Tanner McKee might be on the way out because I wasn't very impressed with the Saints quarterback that they drafted, the guy from Louisville. He's like,
was it Minton or something like that?
Yeah, halfway to 30, and I'm like, I don't know. Like,
yeah, he's older.
Like if I was Kellen Moore and I knew what I was getting in Tanner McKee, I would have been on the phone with the Eagles immediately, well before this draft, to just be like, hey, I'm going to come for Tanner McKee, and here's what I got for you. Especially after all the news was starting to break over Derek Carr being in possibly like end of his career condition with his throwing shoulder. So, I don't know. That might be another thing where if Carr doesn't come back, you might see the Saints make a pick for a future draft pick, make a trade for a future draft pick. And the Eagles are like, go ahead, go start Tanner McKee in an offense you're going to know, and good luck to you. You get to throw to Crystal. So we'll see what happens there. I don't think they're done because they got Kyle McCord. I think McKee and the Saints, there's possible movement there potentially.
Oh, yeah, it could happen. I mean, now it makes McKee, if they end up wanting to get some trade value for him, get a third round pick, during the season, if some quarterback goes down early, he's got tape out there now. McKee does. He's always played well when he's come in for the Hurts. He's always played great in the preseason. And I don't think he's ever had a bad game he's ever even entered. So it's possible now. It might, we definitely want to see how McCord does in the pros before you want to like rush out McKee. Yeah. But he does have again, according to Lindy's, under the they have McCord as the number one checkoff for intangibles. Stood tall in a prove-it year after exiting Ohio State and opened eyes at the East-West Shrine game. So he's also a Philly guy. Grew up an Eagles fan. He's from the area, went to St. Joe's. So he's an Eagles fan, drafted by the Eagles as a quarterback. I mean, he had to be in heaven. Anyway, that's what I got on McCord. I could talk about him for another 10 minutes, but
he might just be another future Cleveland Browns quarterback.
He might be. Anyway, I love the value there. I thought it was good. Now, did the Eagles have a need at quarterback? No. But to me, you got a guy like McCord sitting there. Here's the other thing that's very interesting. Right before the Eagles picked McCord, Cleveland traded with whoever was in front of the Eagles.
There was word
finally draft Shedeur Sanders. You wonder if the Eagles were about to pick Sanders, him sitting there in the fifth round or sixth round.
There was word that said the Eagles were maybe going to take Sanders, and that's why the Browns jumped in front of the Eagles to get him.
Right.
So smoke screen by
the Eagles ended up drafting a quarterback.
Yeah. So that was very interesting, and it's probably true. The Eagles don't have any fear of dealing with high profile types. They've got a championship team. They just expect you to kind of fall in line now. It's kind of nice. But Kyle McCord, number 6, 6th round pick. Can't argue that. They need a guy to groom and grow. And I just hope Tanner McKee stays because he's a good player.
Me too. As much as I love that they drafted McCord, I'm sold 100% with McKee. So, but this allows the Eagles now, if they ever move on from McKee, just because it's time for McKee to go get his shot, or they're going to help out a team by getting them a good investment back in a draft pick or two to ship them off somewhere. You got McCord there that I'm not saying he's going to be ready next year to step in, but you got another quarterback in the future to develop, and that's got some tangibles that you like. And it's just a good story too, with him coming, home to drafted by his fan favorite Eagles. That's just cool. All right, next up, here we go. We knew at some point the Eagles were going to be starting to draft and bring in some big guys to go to Stout University. Well, here's number 1.
So here's what's funny about these guys. Both of these guys were ranked higher than the 2 guys that I thought the Eagles might target late. At least one. Let me go see if I can find Miles Hinton here.
Hinton's another guy, by the way, that has NFL pedigree. His father also played in the NFL.
What was his father? Chris.
Yes. Yes, Chris Hinton. That's his dad.
Wasn't he a D lineman?
He might have been. I'm not saying they played the same position.
Yeah. So I don't have anything about Miles Hinton other than the fact that I like the fact that he was a tackle for University of Michigan. I don't have any info on him.
Sean Runyon, Michigan.
Dude, Booker versus Carter might be the Runyon versus Strahan matchup at the defense.
Yeah, I mean, this guy Booker, and he's good. I did watch some tape on Booker. I'm like, this guy's spouting his mouth off. How good really is he? He's pretty good. So I'll give him that. But, man, I don't know if I'd be picking a fight with a guy that's already established himself as one of the best defensive tackles in the league.
Yeah. So
but
I have none information on Miles Hinton.
You don't have anything on Hinton? He's not listed?
Nope.
Wow. Okay. Well, he might not be listed in Lindy's either. Lindy's. I'm looking through here. Let's see if I can find him.
I do have the next guy.
Actually, he's also checked off with intangibles. So a good technician at college level because of his volume of reps. A lot of work could accurately be described as a teach tape by offensive line coaches. Let me just give you some more information on him. And I would think he'd be listed if they have him in the little that other little blurb areas. They had him projected as a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah, so he must have fell. Maybe he was injured or something. I don't know.
Big guy, 6'6", 332. 5-year college veteran, which starts at both the tackle spots. So he's versatile too.
Yep.
Won a national title in Michigan, of course. Huge frame, surprising mobility for as big as he is. Has traits to become an NFL starter, either at guard or tackle. He does have some medical concerns, so there we go. He's like they had him penned as a draft day 2 selection, and obviously the Eagles got him late in day 3. So I don't know what his medical concerns are. Let me see if it goes into it. Can play tackle guard. We're talking about impressive strength, powerful hands, sturdy anchor, mauler in the run game. Uses his size to move defenders. Light on his feet for a bigger guy. Weaknesses, has dealt with nagging injuries throughout his career. Okay, so he seems to be like an oft-injured player.
Okay.
He's kind of a little bit off balance at times. Played in an offense that did not have him get into true vertical pass sets. Needs more consistency on punch timing and hand placement. So that's what you got there on Hinton. Obviously played in a really good program, so you like that.
Well, and the Eagles take chances on injury guys all the time.
Yeah.
So we'll see. He's going to Stoutland University. So I got full faith in who they draft for.
Big guy, man. 6'6", 332.
Yeah. Well, this next guy.
I think the next guy's even bigger.
When you're ready to flip the button, this next guy I do have.
There he is. There he is.
So this guy was the 6th overall offensive tackle by Athlon Sports.
Wow.
Now listen to this. He's number 6 because he was only a 1-year starter. So he's 21 years old. 21 years old. Guy's a baby. And listen to all this stuff, and you tell me if this sounds like Geoff Stoutland University to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Analysis. Here's the bottom line. Any NFL offensive line coach should want to get this guy in the building and mold his impressive physical traits into a powerful presence at right tackle. And with some patience, he could absolutely become that kind of player. And when they're saying
tackle,
right tackle, right? So, and they're saying there's lines like this. He's scary. He's a scary sight to see when working up to the second level or pulling out in open space, which means he can move. And he says he can be a devastating finisher, using his size to just punish those folks at that second level. So I'm like, this dude sounds like another Jordan Mailata. So
either that or even a what's the guy that they got from the Bills who had the long career going to Hall of Fame?
Jason Peters.
Sounds like he's got a little Peters potentially in him.
So he's 21. He's got plenty, and he was predicted to go in the 2nd round. So I love this pick, right?
Yeah.
So there's the Stoutland student. And when he graduates in 3 years and takes that right tackle spot from Lane Johnson,
that's exactly right.
So I love these 2 picks back to back with the offensive tackles.
Seems they got tremendous value on both, and maybe especially with Cameron Williams. Lindy's has him 8th overall and a projected 2nd rounder. So here's another publication that had him, much higher than he was drafted. Talks about him being a 3-star recruit out of the 2022 class. Broke out as a starter this season. Rose through the ranks of the Longhorns depth chart. Take over as right tackle. Cut 30 pounds of weight. So the guy was even bigger than he is at one point. Was tabbed as a not stabbed. He was tabbed. He was tabbed as an early riser by scouts as he moved up to a prospective top 50 grade by many. Talked about his imposing size, good height and weight, bulk. Hands are huge and powerful and can really pop a guy out of his stance. Small edge rushers would fear Williams, as his powerful profile stands to be one of the best in his class. Ability to line up his body to the rusher and continue solid leverage despite some quick lateral moves. So it sounds like he can even handle some speed guys. Long enough to handle the edge rushers with good frames. Weaknesses. Disastrous game against Georgia. So that's supposed to be why he dropped. Said he had a really bad game against Georgia, took advantage of his messy footwork, and put him in a lot of situations where he had to move in more of a zone blocking setup. A bad environment for him. Can't follow edge rushers around the arc without losing his legs. So these are the type of things that Stout University, if they can correct, can really. He had some big whiffs, I guess, apparently on the Georgia tape. Yeah, so that must be why he fell as much as he did.
If the kid's willing to learn,
right. That's the thing. What's the guy got upstairs? What's his football drive? That'll determine whether or not, because we know Stoughton's a success program. So if you fail in Stoughton University, it's on you, not the coach.
Yep.
So
Malata had no footwork either, and he's one of the best left tackles in the league right now. So
yeah, he's got never even played football.
Nope. So
I doubt he's the athlete that Malata is, but
maybe not. He sounds like a Trey Williams type if he can get.
Like I said, Jason Peters, even just a guy that big bulky dude that apparently can move, and Stoughton's going to love bringing him in.
Yep.
Yeah. So good stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, you got to like that one. What we'll do after we get through the last guy here is we'll go back for each player and we'll just give an overall grade.
Okay.
And we'll take into account the player itself, where he was drafted in the draft, and then we'll wrap up the show. So the last guy, this is a guy that I also like, and a lot of people that are like really draft gurus, most even like the top guys on the television don't really know about guys that are this sort of low on the bar. He's more of like a sleeper than anything else. But this guy had 16 sacks at Virginia Tech.
Yep.
That alone stands off. So clearly he knows how to get to the quarterback. I don't know why a guy with 16 sacks would fall so much unless it's like, what some of the concerns are that maybe I would even have. And he's a smaller guy. But, anybody who can get to what do they always say? Like, you want to just keep firing fastballs at the quarterback?
Yeah.
This could be a fastball type guy. Just certain packages you bring in and, you send this guy off the edge and see what happens. But, Matt, I'll let you give you some thoughts, and then I'll try to dig up some more information on him here a little bit.
Yeah, so this guy is not in Athlon for the role that he plays as an edge defender or
outside linebacker.
Yeah, so he must be in my Lindy's magazine is where I read a bit about him. But he's there's a couple of guys every draft that you can count on how he drafted, and this is the Jalix Hunt pick of last year. It's years back. You can talk about Chris Gokong how he was like a rookie GM.
That's the guy that came to mind when I first.
Find small school guys, but although Virginia Tech's not a small school, but ACC
school is a little bit more well known. Yeah.
But the production's there, and so I think again, like Vic Fangio is going to find a way to make these guys have he just totally knows how to use these tweener types. From the traditional perspective. Plus, they know that they're trying to defend everybody with the pass, and they want guys that can move and drop back into coverage and all this stuff when they're not blitzing the quarterback. So he sounds like it's almost like a Jalix Hunt type clone to me, only a more productive one than Hunt was. Hunt, they truly looked at a project.
Hunt also changed positions too. So they really, it was really a project.
Yeah,
Yeah.
safety to edge rusher for Hunt. So they didn't have much production on what to think of. They just saw a body, and Vic
Yeah.
said, "Yeah, I know how to use that guy." And yet, here's a guy that has those 16 sacks. So he's got the production there to back up where they picked him. And you throw him on a. I look at Jalen Carter on this Eagles defensive line, and I'm like, who can't be productive on this Eagles line? As long as Jalen stays healthy,
Right.
and all these guys are complementary players, and if you get those speed balls coming at the same time, like it's a problem when
Can't
Carter's.
block everybody. And so the guys that are singled up need to win their battles. And the
Yep.
Eagles, we know they have two guys that already do it, Hunt and Smith. And if any of these other guys, and we certainly think that Campbell could do it, and if any of these other guys pan out, like this guy, man, they will be throwing fastballs all the time.
So can't go wrong with the pick. It's the last pick of the draft, Mr. Irrelevant for the Eagles, but I love him.
6'2", 242 out of Virginia Tech. All right. They had him projected as a 5th or 6th round guy, so they were right there pretty much. He started his career at Florida. So again, it's a program that's not, nothing to shake a stick at in Florida. But he only had 5 starts. And in those 5 starts, he had 4.5 sacks, even at Florida. Then he transferred to VTech, and his career caught on fire. Excellent production, put him on the map as a prospect. Some scouts wrote him off due to his size and length limits. But it says he has a fair share of supporters who buy into his motor and technical ability.
Yeah.
Rockets out of his stance, has first end quickness to his game.
You know who that sounds like to me? Ex-Eagle.
Trent Cole?
Nope. Before Trent Cole.
Hang on. D end or offensive or outside linebacker?
D end. Play with the Jets before the Eagles got him.
Hugh Douglas?
Hugh Douglas. You're reading that off, and I'm like, this sounds like Hugh Douglas. Quick first step.
Yeah.
From the end position.
Yeah.
Quick twitch guy. Yeah.
Always searching for counter moves and stays active with his hands. Ability to plant, redirect, and create new angles as a pass rusher is a trump card. Twitch gives him a degree of unpredictability, setting up moves and finds ways to attack. Had an outstanding game against Virginia.
Yeah.
And has shown strong. So did you go to that game, by the way? VTech versus Virginia?
That game. Nope.
Apparently he had a big game in that one. You would have been like, yeah, I know this guy. Virginia shown strong speed and power conversion. Boundless motor. By the way, I don't know if you saw his, how they've done some of the video footage of the guys getting the call. Did you see his?
No.
It's pretty cool. He's not even saying anything. He just has he's doing a kind of like a selfie thing with his camera on. And his whole family is in the back singing Fly, Eagles Fly, an Eagles fight song. And he's just laughing. He's just kind of like, he didn't say anything. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So length only, let's see. So I always like to read the weaknesses. So length only lets him reach the bottom shelf and will impede him against most NFL offensive tackles. So I think what they're saying there is like the Mamula syndrome, where, they'll either push him around or they'll just push him to the ground, because maybe because he's a little undersized. But let's see. I mean, let's see if they're able to do that, because it sounds like he's really quick and fast and twitchy. So what else do they say about him? Overall lack of mass on his frame makes run defense's duties very difficult for him. But again, he could put on more, weight and strength with the Eagles. Too quick to turn his back to blocks rather than working through them. So it sounds like he's does a lot of spin moves, maybe is what they're saying. Yep. Gets fooled by options and play action too easily. Inability to stack and shed was a major problem against his competition. So again, it's really just his undersized, and this is a guy, hey, he's a 6th round pick.
Yep.
He doesn't, if he ends up not flaming out or whatever, then they just let him go. I mean, they can't keep everybody. The Eagles had a lot of picks, and they got to get it down to 53-man roster, but it sounds like he's a guy that they could either, depending on how much he's able to prove himself, he could be in certain packages, or he's a practice squad guy that they can call up at any time due to injury, something like that. Any thoughts? Any other thoughts?
No, that's about it. I think at his ceiling, he has a chance to be a Hugh Douglas type. At the floor, maybe a Derek Burgess type, up to him.
Yeah, another good. Yeah, Burgess was he had a good career, good little short career there. All right, so let's go back. I'll just pull the names up again. Let's go back to number 1. Overall grade for, and again, we're going to take into account what round he was drafted, what we think of him as a player. We don't have to necessarily get into it again. We just talk about each one, but just give me an overall grade per player, and I'll give you mine, and then we'll wrap it up with some final thoughts.
Well, from the Eagles' perspective, I love the fact that they were backfilling guys that they just signed, right, or just lost. So if he's going to be on the field to back up Zach Bond and become that player eventually, or if they use him as an edge, I see that as like a A- B+ range. So, but because everyone else was high on this guy, I would say it's an A- because to get him as they did in the draft, that's a pretty sweet first pick, and not anything more than a 5th-round pick to move up to just one spot to get him, rather than whatever they would have had to give up for the trade.
Yeah, they would have given up more if they made that deal with the Chargers. Who knows? So I'm going to take that into account. Absolutely. Take into account that it wasn't just the Eagles that had this guy as a top, maybe as a top 10, but I know that some of these, like Jeremiah there, Daniel Jeremiah, who I think is one of the best evaluators out there. He had him as a top 12 player. So taking that into account, and the fact that it's a position of need for the Eagles, having lost Brandon Graham to retirement and Sweat to the Cardinals in free agency, I'm going to give it just a little notch ahead and give it an A, just a solid A pick for Campbell.
Okay.
Let's move on to Mr. Makuba, the safety out of Texas.
I'm telling you, I'm going to sound like a homer as we go through these picks, but this is the guy that I like the most out of all their picks when I'm looking back at it. And I'm like, I think this dude's going to be a real player. And we've seen the model for this guy with CJ. So I love this one. I'm going to give it a solid A.
Okay. I will go. I do have concerns about his size. I do love his coverage ability. He is a really good instinctual corner. I mean, not corner, but safety, but really good coverage. He's a ball hawk. I definitely see all of that people talk about, because I've watched a lot of tape on him since they drafted him. And I like the way that he, his reading ability, doesn't get fooled much. He seems to be smart back there with coverage. I love all that stuff. Is he going to be able to hold up in the NFL with his size? Now, he plays physical, so he doesn't shy away from hits. Matt talked about nearly decapitating, a player, which I have seen a hit. It's awesome. But how much of a beating can he take as if he ends up being a starter? How long can his body last? He's going to put on some weight. He's not going to get any smaller. So I'm not going to go as high as A here, but I will go with a good B+ pick. I think it's very solid. Let's do Mr. Ty Robinson again. Now we got him in the 4th. The Eagles did not get a 3rd pick. So 4th round now, Ty Robinson, the defensive tackle out of Nebraska.
So I give it a solid B, right? Solid B. I think they may have watched some of the defensive tackles that they had higher rated just go a few picks, or maybe the pick right before they went in the 3rd round, which allowed them to trade back and still get a good sounding defensive tackle. So I'll go solid B with this one.
Yeah, I think that's where I am. I like the pick a lot. The more I watched him, I think he's, like I said, I think his floor is a solid player. I think his ceiling, if he can give you more of a pass rush, I think he's really good against the run. I definitely can see him being a good run stuffer. But if he can also add some pass rush to the game, that could be even a higher pick. But I'll stick with a nice solid B there in terms of getting this guy with this type of talent in the 4th round. Yeah, I think B's where I'll land him at there. Let's move on now to Mr. Mac McWilliams, the corner out of Central Florida.
I have no idea who this kid is. So
it'd be hard to grade him.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'll give you a floor and a ceiling rating, right? So my floor is probably, I don't know, a C- because I feel like we're well stocked at the cornerback position.
Yeah.
But if he becomes a return specialist and can take some to the house or get some good returns, then it's as high as a B+, maybe an A. So it
Yeah.
all depends on who this guy is and how they're going to use him.
Yeah.
If it's just for cornerback depth, I'm not sure I quite get it.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I'm with you. I mean, if I knew who this guy was and I was able to do more research on him than I have done so far, I would probably even give it a D because I don't really. I mean, if you're going to go corner here, I think there was a lot of guys that had better intangibles, whether it's height, whether it's just better football program that were available when they took him. But I'm not. It's unfair to give him a D also, so because I don't know much about him, and
If any of our subscribers are from Central Florida area,
yeah, anybody can give us some scoop on this guy.
Give us a picture, give us a play.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, very, very true. So if anybody knows about him, played with him in high school, played against him in high school or college, yeah, let us know more about him. I really almost want to just give him an incomplete grade. I'm just going to keep it low too, though, C minus, D plus,
Yeah.
because I don't know much about him. So I'll put that out there as sort of a prerequisite to this pick that I don't know enough about this guy to really give him what I would consider a credible grade at this point. But just the fact that who his name was, what I know about his attributes, and who was out there, I'll just give it a C minus for now, and a to be determined maybe as we go forward.
TBD. Prove it, Mac.
Yeah, prove it, Mac. Wish you the best, though. Don't get me wrong. You're an Eagle. We love you. In case you're watching.
Yeah.
All right. Next guy. I'll always let you go first, but
yeah.
How about Smile Mondone?
I'll give it a solid B again because it's a Georgia linebacker, young dude. And again, this is another guy that combined with the other linebacker they took. I wonder if the Eagles are seriously concerned about Nakobe Dean's knee with this pick and with the other linebacker. So I love Nakobe Dean. He came on. He was proving it in the year that we said he had.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately he just had that knee injury. So again, that's where I who knows what this guy will be, but it's solid B. It's a position of need. They were the thinnest at linebacker going into the got two. So I like it. One from Alabama, one from Georgia. Can't go wrong with players. So
this guy's good friends with Nakobe Dean too. Apparently they're good buddies. I think this is the guy, not Campbell, that they're looking to replace. I'm not saying looking to replace. It's kind of the wrong way to word it, but if they need to replace Nakobe Dean, whether it's he just is not able to come back from his injury fully, because it is a significant bad knee injury he's going to try to get back with, and say he's never the same player again, I think this is the guy that they have pinpointed to be Nakobe's to replace it, because I see a lot in Nakobe Dean in his play. I mentioned how he blitzes a lot, and he's able to get through blitzing. He's fast side to side. He reminds me a lot of Nakobe. I like the pick. I'll give it a good man. I might even go B plus with him. I'll stick with just a solid B, but good. I really like that pick.
B makes me smile.
He does. That's a good one. All right, there you go. Next up.
I was like, okay, center guard, 5th round pick, got the bloodlines in them. So I'm like, isn't possibly another solid B. Like it fills a position. Like again, I didn't really think about it until just tonight when I'm thinking about that game in the playoffs where they were down. Who's the starting Jurgens? They're down Jurgens and Dickerson, and they're like, holy cow! Like,
yeah,
we got a gap in our line that we didn't realize we had. So that fills a need right there. Could have been Bob Smith and have zero bloodlines at all. And I would have nothing positive to say. So this one's probably, he did fall to the 5th round, but centers and guards never really go all that high anyways. Right. So, I don't know. It's another solid B.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you can get a guy with his pedigree, his father was a Pro Bowl player at the very much in need position that Matt talked about. We don't have a true backup center. Probably the best center in the team, believe it or not, is probably Landon Dickerson. He's probably even better than Jurgens, but we need him at left guard. And Jurgens obviously has become a Pro Bowler himself now. But yeah, either one of those guys get down. You'd rather not have to move Landon, because then you're impacting two positions with one injury. Be nice to just plug. Here's the thing: you almost guaranteed he's going to make the roster. Unless he's a total bust, this guy's going to be on the team. So Yeah, I think that's definitely a great position to need pick. And it looks like we got value getting him in the 5th round. He was projected 3rd rounder. So B plus. I'll go B plus just because it really fits the need, and he seems to have be good enough to be a good backup center. All right, Mr. Kyle McCord, quarterbacks, the Cuse.
So out of all the picks, besides the cornerback, the quarterback was the other position of need that was lowest on the charts, right? So,
yep.
Unless there was some other mega talent here that slipped all these rounds to get down to this position, and maybe they lost out on Shedeur Sanders. I am definitely happier that we have Kyle McCord. If we were drafting a backup quarterback, please give me Kyle McCord and no drama versus Shedeur Sanders.
That's the thing. Yeah.
So, I'll give this one. It's not really a need position, and it's not all that flashy. It makes me think that McKee might be moved on in the future, which makes me sad because I think McKee is a great thrower of the football. So I don't know if it's my own bias against it, but it's probably a great pick. But for the need, I'm not sure. But it's 6 rounds, so you just go with whoever you think has talent.
Yeah.
So I don't know, C plus, B minus. He's in that range for me. He's going to be a prove it guy. He's either he's going to play and prove it, and it's like, yeah, that guy's a solid pick, or boy, do we waste our draft value.
I mean, if he doesn't pan out, it's a 6th round pick. It's not
lost
that hurt.
So a lot of potential positive with this guy.
Yeah. So I definitely think there's tremendous upside in terms of the low risk, high reward. So I factor that in. I also factor in, and 100% full disclosure, he's my boy from Syracuse. So he's also a hometown player. Went to St. Joe's, grew up an Eagles fan. So you put those intangibles in there, and for me, I give it a solid B pick. And if he doesn't pan out, it doesn't hurt the Eagles at all. It's not a position in need that Matt pointed out, but this allows the Eagles to potentially let McKee go next year after when his contract's over. If he wants more money and the Eagles can't keep him, then you got a guy that's going to have McCord here for a couple years to be able to learn the offense and see what he can do. So low risk, high reward. I give it a B. Next up, Mr. Miles Hinton, tackle out of Michigan. By the way, so much for me saying we'll be done by 9.
Yeah,
we're just taking way longer than I thought.
Part 1 and part 2. Yeah, I'm like blowing right past any other responsibilities. So this is probably my least impressive. This guy's down with Mac McMillan. I'm not sure. Maybe the injury history is a true risk, and he stays low. So I don't know. I'll give it a C.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, I don't know.
Way better. Like the next might be. This guy's my C. I don't know what to think about that, but I give him a C.
I like 2 things about him. He's got the NFL pedigree because his dad played. His dad was a really good player, and went to Michigan. Those are 2 pluses in my view without even looking at any tape. I like both of those things. 6th round pick again. He doesn't pan out. We used a 6th round pick on him. So to get a tackle out of Michigan it's a beast in terms of his size, the big dude. Let's send him to Stoughton University. See what happens. Like I said, if you can't make it through Stoughton University, you don't improve, then that's on him, and he's not meant to be here. So I'll give it a B minus because maybe there was some other needs the Eagles could have went there versus a tackle, but that's probably my only downside. I think there's probably more upside here in this pick, especially since he's a 6th rounder. B minus. Next one, Mr. Cameron Williams.
I like this guy a lot just because he's so young, 21 years. So I'm like, if anyone's going to spend 3 years at Stoutland University for the full degree, it's going to be this guy. Yeah. So I give this one probably a B plus. Like I love this. Both magazines had him relatively highly ranked in a deep tackle group, and so the things I like about him that are at his ceiling or that he's done well already, I love. And if it's just fixing the footwork, that's easy. And they'll get to work right away on that. And he might produce like pretty early, I can see him getting on the field pretty quickly if he takes to the teaching. So I like this pick a lot. B plus.
B plus. I'm going to say that this is the guy out of all the picks that probably in terms of value and where he was picked, in terms of his ceiling, this is the guy with the biggest gap. So 6th-round pick with the potential to be a starting right tackle in the NFL and a good one, if not a dominant one. He's got the attributes. What's going to be key here with this guy, because I don't know much about him at all in terms of what's in his head. This is a guy that loves football, is determined and wants to get better, go to Stout University with willing to learn and know that this guy could turn him into an all-pro tackle with his abilities. If he's that type of a guy mentally,
he should take off.
This is going to be a gigantic sleeper, sneaky pick that we may be benefiting from for 10 years down the road. It all depends to me what's in his head. To me, again, evaluating risk reward, low risk, super high reward. I got to give this one I'll stick with B+. I don't want to get crazy with an A. Solid B+ for Mr. Williams. And finally, let me get him up here. There he is. Why is it not working?
Nope.
There we go. Yeah, he was there.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Mr. Antoine Powell Ryland.
Without getting too excited either, I do think this is like a Hugh Douglas type player at his best, and that's pretty good. So I'll give it a B+.
Yeah. Again, he's a guy that doesn't make it, not a big deal. I mean, he'll be long forgotten. No one ever remembers his name. If he ends up being he was the sleeper guy, but I don't think I mentioned it when I was going through Lindy's. This guy was Lindy's sleeper. So that's enough for me to some other people. He's not off of everybody's radar.
Right.
There were some guys that definitely know about him. And when you go, anyone who's got 16 sacks at any level, even Chris Gokong, I went off on him. This is way, way long ago, but he was a guy, small school, had 16-something sacks. He looked like the most dominant player I've ever seen on tape. And he ended up being a pretty decent, he played for like 5 years in the league. So that's something that I could see maybe this guy doing if he's really that good. So we'll see. So I'll give it a B-. So overall grade for the Eagles draft. I don't think we had many. What do we have? One that was a C or lower. So
I think the average would come out for me to be probably like a B+.
Yeah.
I had 1A, and that was the first one that they grabbed. Everyone else, I think I've been saying B+ for the most part.
Yeah.
So Ian has got to be B+ for me.
Yep. I think my grades too are probably between you had the safety a little higher than I do, but otherwise we're pretty close on everybody else. And I think I graded McCord higher than you. Yeah, I think my overall's got to be B+ area. I think it's a really solid draft, especially when you consider the Eagles were drafting last.
Mm-hmm.
So you factor that in, and to get these type of quality guys or guys that have the ceilings they do, now it's up to them. It's up to these guys, especially like Cameron Williams. If you have those attributes and you go to Stout University, man, you can't go to the mirror at the end of the day if you don't make it in the NFL and blame anyone else but the guy you're staring at. That's the way I look at it, especially with him. Not to put too much pressure on the guy. No, it's still hard to make it in the NFL and everything, but this guy has all the tools to be, a force.
And the tackles in front of him, the tackles in front of him, Lane Johnson was a blue chipper when he came out, but Jordan Mailata, no. And some of these other guys that swap positions, and even folks to the left like Mekhi Becton, I'm like, they know and will tell him that every day. If you're willing to work, you can get right to my position. In time to be an All-Pro.
Yeah. So let's see what type of player he is upstairs, because he definitely has all the physical tools to, come out of Stoughton University with as a 5-star player in the league. So it'll be interesting to watch his career. It's like the Padawan Star Wars.
Yeah.
At the end of episode 1, where the center goes, "We'll be watching your career with." I forget the quote as I'm about to say it.
Interest or something.
Great interest. Yeah, we'll be watching your career with great interest.
These guys are gonna make preseason fun to watch because probably the most attention we've put into their draft picks and the most research just to prepare for these shows. So I'm kind of excited to see these tackles. So let's go.
Yeah. So this will be our show for the week. There will not be any Wednesday show. I'm actually going to be traveling at the end of the week, so definitely won't even be in pocket to do any shows. So we'll be back next week, probably Wednesday or Thursday, and
have to pick some topics for that one.
What's that?
We have to start getting into some specialty topics for the offseason now.
Well, I was thinking we're going to know who all the undrafted free agents that they pick up are by then. So we'll talk about that briefly.
Okay.
And then, yes, we'll have to have some off-season, which is going to be fun. We'll come up with like top 5 lists or things like that. That'll be fun to do.
Maybe a 22 round, 11 versus 11 offense, 11 defense, me versus you, all-time Eagles draft.
Yeah, pick our number 1 guys at each position.
Yep.
I like that. That's a good idea. Yeah, so all kinds of fun things. So what are we talking about? Making sure you guys subscribe and like, so stick with us. So because we're going to have some off-season content, so we're not going to go away. We'll be here, talk everything Eagles going forward. So with that said, fly Eagles fly. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time on Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff.
Birds.
Go Birds.